right, everybody, welcome back to another Friday night episode of Keto Rocks and the first Friday kickoff of No Carb November. I'm Jim Hobbs, and down below is my carnivore co-host, Brian Damaged Forsythe of the band Kix and the European touring band Rhino Bucket. And we'll talk more about that later on. And then we have coming back for her monthly recap of the month before, and I'm really excited about hearing this one, is our good friend and sister, Carrie Husband. So Carrie, welcome back.
Well, shalom. It's nice to be back with you too, and with your Keto Rocks family. I'm excited to share today.
Awesome. Well, we're excited. First of all, you're glowing. So I know we got some good stuff coming from you. You're like glowing with light. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to share.
Absolutely. Well, amazing experience that changed my life forever.
It shows.
Yeah, actually, I noticed that right off the bat.
Wow. Thank you both.
So why don't you tell everybody like what led up to this journey and then the experience of this journey and what it meant to you? I know it meant something to Ken too, but let's hear for you. Like what was life-changing about this?
You know, I think the most life-changing experience for me to date has been this mountain journey when we went to Crestone, and simply because I had a vision of it 20 years prior. And, you know, sometimes when visions are presented to you, you don't really know what to do with them. You know, it's like, well, what does this really mean to me right now? I felt it. I felt this, that there was something incredibly significant, but I had to sit it on the shelf because it really, at that point in my life, I couldn't fully connect to what I was seeing, what I was experiencing in the place that I was at 20 years ago. And so in the process of being up in the mountain in Colorado and actually doing that which I had seen a vision of, and then being able to connect it, going like, oh my gosh, this is it, that it's actually flowing through me. One of probably the biggest outcome of that, and I'll explain to you what happened and why it's so significant. But what I realized, my strong takeaway in this was, many times when we are giving those visions, it's not about the striving after them. It's about journeying through them. And that when we allow life to flow through us, they just magically appear when they're supposed to appear. And that sometimes the striving after those things can actually hinder that which needs to just flow. And I probably am not doing the justice of putting it to words, because, you know, most of my life in my Christian upbringing, everything was striving to become something, to become something, to become something. And instead of just being in the moment, of living where I was at in the moment, and embracing the day for its love and its challenges and its warfare. And what I mean is like laying siege to myself. I don't see the external stuff. I like laying siege within and just allowing all of that to flow through me. And all of a sudden I found myself in this beautiful place of, oh my gosh, this is it. This is something that I set on the shelf 20 years ago, and I'm actually walking it out. So the vision that was given to me 20 years ago, it was during a church worship service, and it was actually prior to the worship of where everybody comes in and does the corporate worship, you know, the way church formats work, was something that we used to do called pre-service prayer and worship. So we would have incredible music on that would just pretty much put you on your face. And because it was so spiritually moving, you could feel the spiritual energy in it. It wasn't religious. It didn't have a lot of words. It just was deeply emotionally connecting, so you could get in that beautiful heart space with spirit within. And I saw this vision of me climbing a mountain. And in the beginning of this vision, I was in a red dress. It was a formal dress. It wasn't like a wedding gown or anything at that point. It was just a red formal dress. And I'm thinking to myself, if I'm seeing this vision, why in the world am I climbing a mountain in a formal dress? This makes no sense to me. But as I'm climbing up it, it was very difficult, climbing over boulders and rocks, and my feet were slipping. And by the time I got to the top of the mountain, I was just exhausted. I mean, remember, this is a vision that I'm experiencing, and I'm at the top of this mountain and I'm exhausted. but then I stand, and when I stand, I notice that my formal red gown has become a white wedding dress. And I'm no longer red, I'm now white. And I threw my arms up in the air. And as I threw my arms up in the air, I could feel the sense of all creation below was like applauding this journey that was accomplished. I call it like the trees were clapping. I don't know how else to say it, but I was so high above that the trees were below. I was above that tree line. And then this mist came in and flowed over the top, which was kind of veiling the trees that were below. But it was this celebration and this climactic moment of becoming something and changing and going from red to white. And, it was so magnificent when that vision was presented to me, but I was not touching it. It was like, this is something that's beautiful. I don't even know the message that is being conveyed to me right now. I have no idea what it is, but oh, my heart, there was such a sense of longing for it. But like I said, I was so distant, removed from it, that I had to set it on the shelf. So Ken and I, this is our second trip that we made to Crestone, Colorado. And for anybody, if you're interested, you should go research the history of this community and the significance of it, because I'm not going to go into the detail of it. It's not really for this platform to go in the detail of it. But if anybody's interested, go research Crestone. It's a pretty fascinating place. But it's the second time we've gone there, and we've had people that have joined us all over the United States that have listened to the message that Ken and I are sharing through the Hebrew and the Aramaic languages, and we come together as family. And it was a strong call to the mountain to do this journey, and it had been leading up to it, and there's a lot of prophetic insight and stuff that had been leading up to this moment. But we decided as a group that we were gonna make this journey, and we were going to set up a base camp partway up so that some people could join that didn't want to do the rest of the climb. And then there was also other people that chose to stay below, which was so fascinating to see, because it was literally like 3 different groups. We had 3 different, like the lowland, the midland, and the highland, all coming together on this same time period. So let me just say this, that the hike was going from 8,000 feet up to 12,000 feet. And I think I might have shared that with you guys in our last chat about a month ago, that, it was going to be quite significant. As a lowlander, I'm down at 2,000 feet. So going up to, 12,000, that's quite significant.
Absolutely.
And so we did this, the mountain ascent happened actually on the 25th, and we set up base camp on the 25th, and we went up to 9,000 feet at that point. And then the hike actually happened on the 26th of September. But just to let you know, I'm going to go into the natural elements of it. The first 1.5 miles was 1,000-foot elevation gain. So, in 1.5 miles, that's kind of extreme to take us up there to 9,000 feet. And we were hiking with all of our gear. So Ken, his pack, oh no, it was absurd. It was probably 90 pounds. Mine was absurd at like 55 pounds. They were absurd. So you can imagine how difficult that 1.5 miles was. But we made it, and we set up base camp with about 20 other people that went there. And we set up base camp. We had a beautiful day. And then the next day was our ascent hike to get up to a place called Willow Lake. And that was an additional 3 miles to get us up to not quite 12,000 feet. I think at that point it was about 10.5. I think it was about 10,500 feet. And that was, it was intense enough. But that hike ended up, when we got to Willow Lake, it was like Spirit said, no, you need to go higher. We need to go to headwaters. And again, I'm leaving a lot of the spiritual side of it out, because I don't want to muddy the water or try to limit it. That's like a dialogue, that the conversation that needs to happen all of its own. On its own. It's not necessarily about the ketogenic diet, even though it is very much connected to it. And I'll share with you guys in a moment why.
So Carrie, can I interject here for a second? So when you're going up those elevations, what's the temperature fluctuations? Like, what are you going from at the base as you go up?
It was this is what's so magical about it. It was like a perfect day. The hiking temperature for us was not what you would think. It was like in the 60s.
Wow.
It was like
Great.
60 degrees, you know, high 50s, mid 60s. It was perfect hiking weather. And the people, when we talked to the locals there before that are down in the lower area, they was like, you know, this time of year that we did it, they were a little concerned that we were going to be hiking in those higher elevations because how the weather could just change dramatically in an instant. And it felt like we just had favor. We just had favor when we did it. So getting back into the journey, so the weather was not an issue. The weather wasn't an issue at all. When we got to Willow Lake, we decided there was a call that we needed to go to the headwaters, which was going to take us up to 12,000 feet. And I'm really glad that we journeyed the rest of the trip. But the ascent up was 5.25 miles at 3,000 foot elevation gain. And, you know, 5.25 miles doesn't seem like a lot if you're walking on flat land, but if you put that elevation gain in there, and granted, at this point, all I was carrying, I carried a little bit of food with me in my pockets and a water bottle that I could fill up along the way because we had this incredible mountain water, but I wasn't carrying a load. My body load was enough to ascend that. What was so fantastic is probably about 3/4 of the way through that hike that day is when it hit me that I was living my vision. And I was so excited because I realized when it was getting really difficult, I was like, oh, I've been here before. I lived this vision and I know I'm going to make it to the top because I'd already seen myself at the top. So even though I was stumbling on the rocks and things were getting difficult, I had no problem with my breath the entire time. Again, favor. And I have dealt in this avatar body with asthma. And with that elevation, I was breathing like it was so supernatural. I can't even begin to tell you. I had no restriction with my breath whatsoever. And so when we got to the top and I had realized that I was going to make it, that is what helped give me the courage to finish when it was hard, because it was like, I've already been here. And I kept saying to myself, I have trained my whole life for this. I've trained my whole life for this. I've trained my whole life for this. And, you know, I had my own little mantras that I was using on the top or on the way up to the top. And we did a sacred ceremony on top. I'm not going to go into detail on that, but what's fascinating is that vision of having the mist come in. It literally started coming in when we were up there. Like it was a total playing out of everything that I had seen. And by the time we actually got back down to base camp, you know, it was an all-day event. I'm not going to lie. It was an all-day event to get up and get back down because it was 10.5 miles round trip. When I got back into base camp, one of the children that were there in the group, he came up to me and he can see auras. And he said to me, well, hello, Ms. White. And remember, I shared that my dress went from red into white, which was really with the crown chakra being opened up and being fully illuminated. And he saw that aura change. You know, he was telling everybody else, hello, Mr. Green, hello, Ms. Green. But when he came up to me, he said, hello, Ms. White. And so again, that was like, because I went into the white wedding dress. Well, let me share with you this real quick, and then I'm going to have to tell you what ended up the next day and why this was so significant.
Sure.
And then we're going to talk about keto and the preparation of this journey. But the word for Adam, as in used in mankind, also means red. So it was like I was starting out in my red walk as mankind and coming into a new sense of being. Changing into white, which is actually the word connected to Laban, which means frankincense, but it also means white. And it means one who has authority that has built themselves. Isn't that beautiful?
That is beautiful.
And so the red walk is like the myrrh, and the white walk is the frankincense. And those were like the anointing oils that were the anointing, the gifts that were given to Yeshua on his birth. And so for me, it was a birth of a transformational walk from the myrrh, the bitter, to the sweet of the frankincense in that mountain journey that I had seen 20 years before and that I had fully lived out. Now, let me end with this of why this was the pinnacle of what happened. I'm leaving a lot out, and that's okay. Just kind of want to skip a stone on this. But the next morning when we were packing up and just Ken and I were at our tent and we were loading our gear. All of a sudden, Ken goes, "Stop. Do you hear this? Do you hear that?" And so I had to stop and I had to focus. His hearing's a little bit better than mine. And I heard this beautiful sound being played that was coming across this meadow. And it was coming to us, and I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. I'm like, why am I hearing this music? And initially I thought it was like a French horn. It sounded just like a French horn. And I'm like, who hikes up into the mountain with their French horn? You know, it's like, this doesn't make any sense. And so it plays, and then it stops and it goes silent for a little bit. And Ken and I are looking at each other like, oh my gosh, this is so magical. What's going on? Well, it starts again. And the spirit within me says, go grab your shofar, because I brought my little traveling shofar with me. So as this sound was coming across, when it would stop, I went and I blew my shofar a couple times. And then the spirit said, sing to this music that's coming across. So this horn started sounding again. And then when it went silent, I took my voice and I was responding with the same notes that the horn was blowing and singing it back. And this went on for a little bit, and the sound kept kind of moving around us in different places. Well, come to find out, what we saw was that there was a man across the meadow, which was actually a bog that we had to cross, which like 3 feet of water in it and willows and whatnot, was not easy to cross through. He was standing on a rock across the meadow, and because the canyon and it's a lot of granite up there, he was actually blowing an alpine horn. He was blowing an alpine horn, which, you know, you can take apart in pieces, and he had packed up with this alpine horn, and
So
he was blowing
that's
it.
the real long ones, right? That go up.
Yes.
Cool.
Oh yeah. Yep. And he was blowing it, and it had this beautiful vibration that was going within the canyon. So between, and you know, with the voice in the response, which was echoing in the canyon and the alpine, it was so magical. Like our whole group that was there, when this encounter finished, we were all excited. We were like, oh my gosh, what was this? This is so amazing where this happened. And you know, it was just magical element, because so many things happened while we were up there. Like I'm just skipping a stone and I'm leaving so much out. But it was so incredibly magical to have that happen. Well, we finished packing up and we were all sorting ourselves out and talking about this beautiful alpine horn, because there was a group of people that were there. There was probably 10 people or so with this horn blowing, maybe 15, didn't quite count them. But it had been a bit from when the horn was blown, when we got all our gear together and we packed out. Well, Ken and I were the first ones down the mountain. And as we came out of the mountain into the parking lot, there was a group that was off to the side, and Spirit pressed upon me, go ask, go ask, go ask. So I walked over. I didn't even take my backpack off at this point. I just walked right over to the group. I said, is anyone here the horn blower? And they didn't hear me at first. And so I repeated it louder. I said, is anyone here the horn blower? And this guy comes out and he said, yes, that was me. And I said, can I hug you? And he said, yes. He goes, were you the voice? And I said, yes. And so we just did this whole embrace, and I was so tunnel visioned, I didn't even bother seeing what was going on around me. But when I finished embracing this man, I looked, and standing right to his side was a woman standing in a white wedding dress.
Oh my. Wow.
It was their wedding day. It was their wedding day, and he had made that alpine horn specifically for her to be blown on their wedding day.
Wow.
And they were handing us glasses of champagne. Now, if you've watched anything that I share, I always joke that when I get over the top excited, I call it champagne moments. I'm like, champagne. They were literally handing us glasses of champagne. So I did not have, I mean, I literally had a champagne moment manifesting this vision that I had of going up the mountain and the wedding dress, all within a 24-hour period of time. Now, if that doesn't change you, I don't know. I mean, this was so personalized for me, but there was so much more, even with Ken and visions and declarations that he's seen. Something happened, something changed from that mountain encounter, from the way up and the way down. And I'm so grateful, because I feel like I was made completely new.
Wow.
Now, let me bring keto into this for you. Had I not been preparing for this, I mean, this journey, obviously, when I kept saying I've trained my whole life for this that was not an exaggeration, you know, and doing this at 49 years old, 7x7, that's not a coincidence either, because that's like 7 sets of 7 moving into a Jubilee year. It's all, it's all so spiritual if you can have the eyes to see it. That when I take a look at this thing and I think about the journey that we did in the preparation, physically, I started preparing for it when I went back on hardcore focused keto February before, right? And that's why we started having our conversation. So in losing 35 pounds enabled me to be able to carry a 55-pound pack. But I also did the training of our hill in town, and my husband and I would train with our backpack. But if I had not had this ketogenic lifestyle, let me tell you, the day that we did our hike, this 10 and a half hours up on the mountain, I ate one time. I missed breakfast because I was so busy getting my stuff ready. I had a pack that I was going to take, and somebody that was one of our friends that lived there said, "You're going to overburden yourself. You need to empty out everything." So I had to repack everything, which I didn't take a pack. I just stuffed my pockets full of some things, and that was it. I missed having breakfast. So I didn't eat anything before I went on that mountain. When we got to Willow Lake, I had a handful of biltong. Do you guys know what biltong is? Dried.
Okay.
I love biltong. I had a handful of biltong, and I did have some apple chips, only a handful of apple chips. That was the only thing that I had for 10 and a half hours of hiking.
Wow.
Not once did I run out of fuel. Not once did I get to the place where I was overwhelmingly hungry. Not once did I run out of energy. That whole journey was only done on that small amount of food because I had already trained my body to be in a ketogenic state where it was literally feeding off the extra stores that I had within me, and I never ran out of energy. Yes, I was tired, but I never ran out of energy. If I would have had to have hiked more, I could have. You know, my joints were starting to feel it at that point, but the energy never stopped. And so I remember sharing that with Ken. I said, I can't wait to share with Brian and Jim about this amazing journey, this incredible, difficult hike on such little food, because my body was running at its optimum order because of the fuel source that I changed. I didn't have to count on food. It was literally my body that carried me through with the spirit that was pulling me forward to have something so magnanimous happen in my life. And all the choices that were made to get me ready from February until September that I couldn't wait to share with you guys, so that anybody that's listening to this video can see even how much changing your diet, heart set, mindset can take you to places that you never dreamed that you would get to, and have it significantly change you from the inside out. And just by starting out with the body and food and seeing things differently and doing things differently, I climbed a mountain and I came down a completely different person.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that, Carrie. I don't know what Brian wants to add to your story or questions he may want to ask. What came to me was that your whole journey is, and this is for all of us, we do the peaks and valleys as we go through life, and we're searching for something that we already know is ours. We're searching, like you were searching that vision you were given. You were Mr. Conover calling. So, but perfect timing, brother. But thinking about what you've done, and you said something. There's a lot of things, a lot of words that are just really just standing out to me. Flow being one of them. Climbing the mountain, the other. But being is another one, and I think we tried to go out and emulate what somebody else is telling us is going to be our mountain that we need to go climb. And the reality of it is we just have to be ourselves. And if we will be ourselves, what we need for ourselves comes to us. And we also do not need to be in a rush for that to come. Like for you, it's taken years for this vision that you were given, what, 20 years ago? How many years ago? 20?
Right. Mhm.
For you to see that manifest itself, of all places, on the mountain, and to see that it just wasn't you that was playing a part in it. There were other people being prepared for that moment to be part of that manifestation. So there's so many beautiful things. I see the spiritual side, I see the nature side, and I see this love that was being celebrated on this mountain. And little did they know it was going to be reciprocated from another spiritual being that was ready to celebrate love. And literally, it was a culmination of love being celebrated, your vision of who you knew you were, that moment coming in concert with their moment of doing that. It just makes it a beautiful moment. But I think so many of us try to strive, and we listen to other people telling us what mountain we should be climbing. And in this case, I'm talking about processed foods and pharmaceuticals that we should be taking, when if we could just free ourselves from those toxins or those thoughts programming, and literally turn inward and turn to your spiritual side to tell you what to go do, not even what to go do, what to go experience. And I've so many people, it's more and more that I hear from, that are talking about no need for grain or alcohol, and no need for eating around the clock, and all these things I'm hearing from multiple people from different sources, not even people in the keto carnivore arena, outside of that this is being spoken to them, when all they're doing is literally blocking out time to meditate, and they're hearing this and they're following that inward voice that says, you're going to live a much better life if you don't do grains and alcohol. And they start to experience life fully. And so when I hear your story of the fact that you decided to rid yourself of carbs and to go back to this ketogenic way of living, those are just steps to get you prepared for this moment, which you've always known that you were going to experience it. And to see that it experienced it because you did listen to that inner voice, you did follow what you were being led by, and the fact that you've had an experience that's changed your life. We all can be so lucky to be able to see what's been spoken to our inner self, our consciousness, and to see that play out, and to see that it just wasn't for me, that it was bigger than just me. So I don't know, there's so many words I want to say, but none of them will do justice of what you shared and what I'm feeling spiritually inside me. But I can't help that it's no coincidence that Brian just got back from Iceland and the mountains and what the sights that he saw. So Brian, what are your thoughts in regards to what's been shared with us and what you've experienced over in Iceland? It's truly just amazing. So I'm going to shut up again and let you guys share.
I don't know if my trip could compare to that one, but yeah, it's, to me, it's like it just shows you how, diet and spirituality and all that stuff's all connected. Once you clean up one area, it sort of opens up another. And the fact that you hadn't eaten and you still had the energy, but I know from experience, when the less I eat, it seems like the clearer my mind gets. And when you're in that state, you're more like open to pick up on things, that normally, a normal person wouldn't. They would just I know, like, if I'm not aware, things just go right by me, and I miss out on so much. But when I'm like in that ketosis state, like nothing gets by me. It's like I'm so much more aware. So yeah. Anyway, yeah. Speaking of Iceland,
Fog, right? A lot less fog.
yeah, that's what. Yeah, very clear. Like everything's clear.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really, I don't know. It's just an amazing story.
Well, I think the beauty of that, and I'll stop too, is just that when we were able to meet with that group at the bottom, and I was able to say, you have no idea what that alpine horn did and how special it was, and to hear them say, you have no idea what your voice and your singing did for us, that we were able to give to one another on such beautiful days that meant so much to each other in different ways, not only in the spirit for my journey, but for them in the natural, to see the two of those come together, the spirit and the natural coming together and touching one another. It's like, that is where we're bringing heaven to earth. That's when we're taking the divine nature and we're bringing it into our now presence, and how big it is when we can connect with one another. And Ken had a conversation with one of the gals that was there. The spirit had said, you need to talk to this woman. And so Ken went over and talked to her. He asked her name, and her name is, how did she say? Did she say Ariel or Ariel?
Ariel.
Ariel. She said, my name is Ariel. And that's the Lion of God, or the Lioness of God. And so Ken said, of course you would be here, because he had said, were you a witness to the wedding? And she said, yes. And he said, well, of course you would be here. So the Lioness of God was there as a witness to what everything had transpired in that beautiful sacred moment. So yeah, I love the fact that clarity allows you to be able to see and pick up on these nuances that maybe someone who lives in the fog of carbohydrates and not having a disciplined lifestyle would just have it move past them. It's like the flow is moving around them and they're not in the flow. And so because they're not in the flow, they can't capture these beautiful divine moments that are waiting to touch our hearts to change us forever. And so when that discipline and that established life order takes place, then we can be in the flow and nothing escapes our attention in our conscious and our subconscious, because they've been unified together. So you're right, Brian. Absolutely. No fog. You can catch everything because of the clarity.
One of the things that just came to me, a lot's come to me, but I don't have time to share everything. But one of the things, when we are told to, since we're a little kid, to always tell the truth, to tell the truth, to walk in truth, the life, the way. And yet, somewhere along the line, we literally stop walking in truth and we start walking in a substance of what somebody said because of what pedigree they've given that, or what title they've given that person, or what book they're telling you to read from, or what book they tell you to follow. But you can't honestly say that you're speaking truth when you have not experienced that or walked that out. And so when someone's asking you to testify something that you didn't do, but what someone told you to go read, whether in this case, whether it's the inerrant word of the Bible or the American Standard Diet, someone's telling you to go do something and to accept that on truth without experiencing it. And I think what we're seeing in 2022 is we have people who are now going out and living life and experiencing it, and they're realizing that what they are experiencing is not the same as what they were told they would experience. So whether it's high cholesterol, you're going to die of a heart attack, or you're going to go to hell, no matter where it is, you're beginning to see people experience truth and not accept what word somebody else is telling them they need to go do in order to have life. Well, life is actually walking that narrow path of truth and being able to discern your truth. Your vision that was shown to you, Carrie, is different than what the vision's been shown to me. It was different from that man who was blowing the alpine horn, who had seen the vision of him marrying his wife up there and playing that alpine horn. He never probably saw the vision of having you sing back to him, or maybe he did. But the reality of it is that was an experience that you now lived, and that's your truth. That's their truth. And if someone told you to go read a book about that experience, it would not have the same impact, and it would not be something that you could testify. But the fact that it's your life lived out, it's your truth, and it is the truth. And the same thing happens when people begin to realize that eating eggs and eating meat is not going to do the things that big pharma and big food and the medical profession is trying to get you to believe that it's going to kill you. And so you don't go into that fear. You go, well, I can't do that. Brian, you're going to have a heart attack. You keep eating the way you do. Jim, you can't keep eating rib eyes. Don't you know your cholesterol is going to, and that's all fear-based, but your experience. And when they decide to finally break free from that programming and go out and climb that mountain on their own, and they find out, wow, it didn't kill me. As a matter of fact, it's given me more life. I was able to do that stretch with no food, and I felt great. I was energized. And so I just think, like Brian said, there's so much correlation between once we clear our bodies and our mind from the toxins, whether that's spiritual toxins or true food products, but it's like a battery terminal. Once you clean your battery terminal that's been corroded, your battery starts right up as long as your battery's fully charged. And for so many of us, we have a fully charged battery sitting there, but because we're believing somebody else's word, our terminals are corroded, and we're not able to live out that powerful life that we have within each of us. And so then we go back to the same man who got our battery terminals corroded for the chemicals that's going to take the corrosion off. And we think, well, I got to keep going back to them, when the reality of it is that we just lived a clean life and kept our terminals clean by the way we live. We would always have available that power without having to go believe a lie. So it all goes full circle. And to hear people from different parts of the world, different genres, from different places, really coming to the same place or sharing the same experience, which is the truth, it's just amazing. So Brian, I'll let you talk. I know you're going to share something about Iceland, and I definitely want to hear about Iceland too. So tell everybody. So tell us what you experienced in Iceland. What stood out for you?
Well, mostly it's just the beauty of the place. I don't know if anyone else has been there, but I've been to the airport a few times, like as a stopover, but flying in, I'd see the landscape, and I always thought, man, this is such a cool place. And my bass player who got married there, he's actually been there. There was one trip we made over to either it was Great Britain or Sweden, somewhere over there in Europe. And on the way back, we had a stopover in Iceland. So he took a few days, and he went diving there, because I guess they have some amazing diving, because there's like continental plates and crevices and weird stuff that you can experience. And so that's where he decided to get married, because he fell in love with the place. So it was funny because everyone in the band got invited to his wedding, but I was the only one that went. But as soon as I got the invitation, I remember thinking, oh, that's crazy. He's getting married all the way over in Iceland. But then I started thinking about it. It was like, oh man, this might be my chance to go see Iceland. So Shannon and I went, and it was pretty cool because I've seen the airport, I've seen that area, but the wedding was like 2.5 hours northwest of where the airport was. So we got to drive out into the middle of nowhere, and it was it's so beautiful there. It's so open and expansive. It reminded me of like Montana, or parts of it were like Montana, and the other parts were like maybe somewhere I've never been, I guess, because I've never been there. But the road to get to this place, it was pretty much just a two-way highway. it wasn't that big, no shoulders on the, you're passing cars, and there was just fields with sheep and these little mini these little like pony herds. It was weird. But it was a cool, I mean, where they got married was in this church. And I don't know how they found this church, but it was this tiny little one-room church, and it was painted black. The church was black. I don't know, it was just pretty cool, the whole experience. And then and we stayed at this ranch. It was like a ranch that had several like the main house and this other house, and then a fishing lodge. So the whole wedding party was kind of spread out. And then we were at this hotel like 2 minutes down the road. So everything was kind of self-contained there. And then after that, we had an extra day that we stayed because everybody was going to go down to the Blue Lagoon, which is where the hot springs are. And that's down closer to where the airport is. And there's a volcano there. And the whole, like, as far as you can see are like lava fields, which is crazy looking. It's just like that crumbled lava, and then there's moss on it, and just the beauty of.
So I saw that one picture. So that's what that was, just lava rocks, gigantic lava rocks. But I saw that one picture you took of that whole field, and it was just like giant lava rocks that you would have in your propane stove, but just a much grander scale.
Right. And in the hotel we stayed at down there, that's, I mean, you look out the window and that's what that was the scenery was just lava. So it was so cool. And then in the Blue Lagoon was next door. Like, we had to drive down the street there. And unfortunately, we didn't think ahead, so you had to reserve a spot to actually get in the hot spring. Unless you're staying at that resort, then I think you have a more private place to go. But we just went in there and checked it out, and they had this big giant hot springs. But the thing was, it was all these tourists. So it reminded me of like a water park. It just didn't seem attractive to me. I mean, I could see getting into a hot spring somewhere just by yourself. It would be really cool, but there was like 1,000 people in there, and it was just like,
so like an assembly line.
Yeah, it just didn't look like fun. but other than that, it was everything. And we took I drove around the volcano just to get the view of everything, and it was just so cool. I mean, it's like you feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere, but there's you're not really that far from things. So
did you get a chance to enjoy some wild caught salmon?
Did I have salmon there? Well, they did have salmon at the wedding. They had a whole, they would come around with different things so you could choose things, pick and choose. Like, they put big bowls of the vegetables and stuff on the tables, but then they come back around with these cutting boards, and they had like lamb, and then they had salmon. So yeah, I got to try some of the salmon, but man, the lamb was really good. And I guess that's what they have there, because it's all you see is sheep everywhere.
Yeah, that's their primary livestock is sheep.
It seems like it. Yeah.
How about what other foods did you experiment with or try there that you've never had before, maybe? Or
I did eat some chicken. I normally don't eat chicken, but the night before dinner, that's what they were serving. So I thought, well, I'll just eat the chicken tonight. But it wasn't like, store-bought chicken or anything. It was like really good. Everything, all the food there was good. Yeah, it seemed like whoever they had cooking the food, I don't think I had any bad food.
Wow, that's great. So what's the temperature out there at this time of year, Brian?
It was a little cold. There was one day when it was kind of drizzling. Actually, the day of the wedding, it was kind of drizzling and windy. So it got a little cold, but it wasn't snowing or anything. So, I mean, it was late fall weather. It felt like.
Now, is that volcano still active? Is it still active? The one that you guys drove around, or is it still an active volcano?
I think it did. The last eruption was this past August.
Wow.
So yeah,
okay. It's active.
yeah. Yeah, and that would have been another cool hike, but that was all like Carrie, you're saying, to hike up to the top of the volcano and back would have been an all day thing, and we only had one extra day, so we just opted out on that one.
Now, what's
And
the...
I didn't have any hiking shoes because I had a Kix gig the night before I had to leave. I was up in Pennsylvania and we left out of Baltimore to fly there. So I had all my gig clothes and everything in my cowboy boots. So I couldn't put like hiking stuff in my suitcase as well. That wouldn't have worked out.
So how long of a flight is it from BWI to Iceland? Do you go to Keflavik? Is that where you fly into?
Yeah, I think it was about 5 hours, 5.5, 6 hours, somewhere
That's not
around
bad.
there. No, not too bad.
That's better than I thought. So, well, awesome. Well, I'm glad you had a good time. And where is Kix playing? Are you guys playing this weekend?
No, we're not. I think it's next weekend. I'm starting to lose track of time. We had a couple weekends off, but we're playing. Where am I going? Oh, Pittsburgh.
Steel City. All right. So make sure you guys check out the Kix Band website. Get yourself some tickets to see America's favorite guitar playing carnivore and celebrate No Carb November with Kix in Pittsburgh, PA. Carrie and Ken, thank you again for gracing us with your presence and sharing your personal journey of what's led you to be able to celebrate your mountain and to see the change that it's manifested on your face. So
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me share. I greatly appreciate it.
No, thank you. And why don't you tell everybody if they wanted to find more about your spiritual side and what you and Ken do, how they could reach out to you guys on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, our YouTube channel is called The Stand 121, and so easy to find. I think you can even put it in. I think that you don't have to. I mean, you can type it in and it'll take you right to the YouTube itself. And we also have a Facebook page called The Stand 121, or you can even look me up as Carrie Husband on Facebook, and you can come find me.
There you go. I highly recommend you guys go do that if you want to find more about what Carrie shares. I think you'll be blessed by it. So I know I have been. And so, Brian, Carrie's climbed her mountain. You've climbed your mountain. And one of the things that helped you to climb your mountain, hopefully you'll share that with everybody who's made it this far along in the show. So what bit of advice that's worked for you that you would like to share? What food group has helped you to strengthen yourself, clear your head, and to walk like a lion?
I would say eat your meat.
And I think all of us would second that. And we're just glad to be back with you guys after 2 weeks. One of the reasons why we weren't there, Brian was in Iceland, and then I had an emergency with our Basset Hound Slinky, and he was on his way at the gates. But he has made his way. I'll tell you guys more about that later. But I'm just grateful for all the positive energies and prayers and well wishes that I received the last couple weeks. I appreciate them all. Love you guys. So we'll see you guys next Friday, same time, same place. In the meantime, stay safe, stay well, stay kind, and stay out of that hospital, everybody. We'll see you.